today we're going to talk about the best time for freight brokers to get shippers and why. So before I share that with you, I want you to think about something. I'm going to explain two scenarios to you. The first scenario is a shipper has their normal flow of freight and their daily job, and a logistics manager and a shipper have a normal flow of work. Everything is steady. Everything is consistent. And so it's very easy for them to predict and to manage their freight, okay? There's not a lot of challenges. It's just very easy and normal without a lot of change, right? So that's scenario A. Scenario B is, for example, logistics managers or shippers when they're dealing with rising fuel costs or a driver shortage or maybe significant weather issues. Whenever there's some sort of a disruption, whenever there's some sort of interference, whenever there's some sort of significant change in the market, okay? So we got scenario one where there's little or no change and it's very steady and consistent. And we got scenario B, right, A and B, where there's a lot of change and a lot of challenges and a lot of issues. If you had to guess, which one creates a better opportunity for a freight broker or freight agent to get their foot in the door with a new shipper? All right, so I don't have time for everybody to vote, but if you guess scenario B, right, scenario B, I should say, where there are a lot of challenges and changes and issues and turbulence, right, we'll call it turbulence, that is the best time to get a new shipper. Right, I remember when we first started, when I first started back in 2003, 2004, one of the things that happened pretty rapidly that first year was fuel prices started to go up rapidly. And I remember being scared of that. I remember having a lot of concern. I remember thinking about that and wondering how that was going to impact our business because it was a potential threat, right? Because I wasn't used to the industry. I was brand new to the industry back then. But what I found out is that that type of change and turbulence, right, causes a lot of issues. So let me give you an example, right? Whenever you have increased fuel prices, what happens is it causes increased freight spend for shippers. And whenever that freight spend goes up dramatically, especially if it goes up quickly over a short period of time, that causes shippers to be open to looking for new opportunities. Because if fuel goes up and their freight rates go up, that is an issue for their business, right? That's something that the CFO and the controller and the CEO and upper management are going to come down to the logistics and shipping department and say, hey, what's going on? Why are we seeing such an increase in cost? That, because we haven't built that cost into our business model, right? And so ultimately, that type of change can cause a significant disruption, and that disruption can create opportunities. All right. So the second one, for example, let's say, for example, there's a capacity shortage like we just had with COVID, although a lot of trucks are back on the road now from March, April, May, June, a lot of trucks parked, right? A lot of carriers parked their trucks. And so there was a shortage of trucks. And what that causes is that causes more demand by the shippers. And so whenever there's a carrier shortage, right? Whenever there's less trucks on the road today than there was yesterday, that causes a potential disruption or service issue for shippers. And those are the types of changes and turbulence that create opportunities for you as a broker. All right. And then another example is, for example, let's say, for example, with COVID, another perfect example that relates back to COVID is their supply chains were disrupted. So anytime that someone's supply chain is disrupted, maybe it's inbound parts that are being imported from a foreign country like China or wherever, whenever that stuff is disrupted, that causes challenges in their supply chain, which have the potential to open up opportunities and open up doors for brokers and agents. All right. So what I'm trying to explain to you, if I simplify this down and break it to the least common denominator, is this. The best time to get shippers as a freight broker or a freight agent is during turbulent times, when shippers are facing challenges like weather, inclement weather, where you've got, say, for example, hurricanes, or you've got serious winter weather, or you've got floods, or you have all these issues. Those are great opportunities for you as a broker to get a new client, right? Whenever fuel prices go up like they are now, fuel prices are rising rapidly. Whenever there's a driver shortage, right? Which the driver shortage continues to grow over time because the industry's not able to recruit drivers at the same rate as they're retiring, because the majority of drivers are baby boomers. So there's a lot of dynamics right now that are stacked in your favor as a freight broker or freight agent. But I wanted you to understand that, because a lot of times people come to me and say, yeah, Dennis, but if there's a shortage of trucks, then how am I going to make money? Or how am I going to manage the rates if fuel's going up? Or, what about this disruption from COVID? How's that going to impact the business? You have to change your mindset and not focus on those as problems, but you need to look at those as opportunities, because that's what they really are. Now, might you have to work a little bit harder in order to get that load moved? Yes. You might have to make some extra calls. You may have to work a little bit harder. But ultimately, if you look at the lifetime value of a client, let's say it's a small client, right? Let's say it's a small client that's doing one load a week with you and you're making, a couple $100 a load, right? That client alone is worth over $10,000 a year in profit, right? That's profit right in the Hip National Bank, year after year after year. If you have that client and you don't grow that business at all for 10 years, right? All of a sudden, you've made over $100,000 in profit from that one small client. Now, just imagine if you had a client that you did one load a day or 5 loads a day. That's not unusual, just so you understand. So what you have to understand now is that when turbulent times happen, whenever there's challenges, whenever there's a lot of change going on in the industry, that is the best time to get shippers as a freight broker, freight agent. So you really have to double down, because when the seas calm, when things start to calm down and seas are steady and there's not a lot of change and fuel is stable and freight rates are stable, that's the time when it's the hardest to get shippers, because it goes back to that old adage: if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? If things are going steady, you don't change what's going on as a shipper. The only time you change is when you need to change, and the time to change, and when people start to feel pain, that's when they make those decisions. And that's what opens up that door a little bit so you can stick your foot in as a broker or an agent and create opportunities for yourself, okay? So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I want you to understand that, number one, I'm living proof of this, right? I went through this during the life cycle of my business. I started the brokerage in 2003. We did over $1 million our first year. We did $3 million the next year. We did $6 million the next year. We did $12 million. And you guys know my story. Before I sold the company in 2016, we were doing over $80 million a year in sales. And so ultimately, throughout that time period, we had a lot of waves where there was turbulence, right? Rising fuel prices, lots of issues with new legislation within the industry, right? That caused carriers to park their trucks, or brokers disappear. A lot of brokers disappeared because of the new bond. There's a lot of things that can make for wavy seas. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Today we talked about when is the best time for freight brokers or freight agents to get clients, and why. I hope you understand the dynamics there. I hope you double down because of what's going on right now with rising fuel prices and some other challenges. Challenges equal opportunities. Don't look at them as obstacles. Look at them as opportunities. If you guys enjoyed this, make sure you share the stream. And as always, if you're curious about becoming a freight broker, freight agent, check out freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Over 8,000 students trained, been in business over a decade, and we offer a 60-day, 100% money-back guarantee. And if you like what you heard, come back next Monday, because I do a Freight Broker Bootcamp live every Monday at noon.